Sponsored by Timing. Apple is working on their cheapest MacBook ever, potentially priced at just $600, and it's coming very soon, and it could be the ultimate push for Apple to absolutely obliterate the laptop market. Let's talk about it. First, let's be clear, Macs as of late have been crushing it. The MacBook Air has remained the title of being the world's best-selling laptop since 2020 with the M1. The most recent M4 model in particular has been a huge success. You can frequently find that model for as little as $750, which is an exceptional value for how much a laptop you can get for that price. So why is Apple making something even cheaper? Well, it's because the vast majority of PC sales are under $700, which Apple has never had a MacBook sell for that low of an MSRP. We've obviously had the Mac Mini, but that is a headless desktop machine. Most people who buy computers buy laptops. Now, that's not to dismiss the Mac Mini, it's an incredible value, but it's not the machine that most people are looking for. So, for Apple to enter the market of sub $700 notebooks is a pretty big deal. The cheapest new MacBook we've ever had was the 11-inch MacBook Air in 2015 for $900. We've never had a MacBook cheaper than that directly from Apple until next year. So, what's Apple going to compromise to achieve this low price? Well, there are some pretty big ones, but not as big as you may think. First, the biggest one being the chip. Every single Mac since 2020 has used an M series chip, but with this new MacBook, that's all about to change, as this MacBook will use the A18 Pro chip from the iPhone 16 Pro. Now, why are they doing this? Well, believe it or not, the A18 Pro is actually now matching or outperforming the M1 chip in performance. That's right, the iPhone you have in your pocket right now is outperforming the best Mac chip from 2020. And with the most recent A19 Pro from the iPhone 17 Pro and iPhone Air, that matches or outperforms the M2 chip. That was a chip that Apple was still using in the Mac up until just earlier this year. Hell, it was being used in the Vision Pro until last month, and now it's being outperformed by the chip in a 5.6 millimeter thin iPhone. Now, most rumors have pointed towards the A18 Pro being used in this MacBook. It was even referenced in Apple's database. However, some people have thought that Apple could use the A19 Pro instead, but no rumors have pointed towards that just yet. Now, with the A18 Pro, it could allow for something pretty significant with this new MacBook: ridiculous battery life. The current MacBook Air already gets an impressive 18 hours of battery life, and the latest 14-inch MacBook Pro with M5 can get a ridiculous 24 hours of battery life. But with this new MacBook, since the A18 Pro is so much more power efficient than an M series chip, the battery life with this MacBook could be the highest ever on a Mac, potentially even more than the MacBook Pro, as it's using a chip intended for a smartphone. But while that's cool and all, there's two big downsides with the A18 Pro. One being the memory. The A18 Pro only comes with 8 gigabytes of memory. Now, while that's fine on an iPhone, it's not great on a Mac. Now, this is part of the reason why some people think Apple will use the A19 Pro instead, as that comes standard with 12 gigabytes of memory. But either way, it'll be less than the current minimum memory capacity for the Mac, which is 16 gigabytes. Now, Apple could change this, as the memory is separate from the chip die, which could allow for Apple to add more memory onto the same A18 Pro chip, similar to what they did with the A12Z Apple Silicon Developer Transition Kit in 2020, where it used the same A12Z chip as the latest iPad Pro at the time, but with 16 gigs of memory rather than 6 gigs of memory on that iPad. But we don't know if Apple will do the same with this MacBook. But the second flaw could be even worse: the USB-C controller. Since the A18 Pro was designed for a phone, its USB 3 controller can only handle 10 gigabit per second speeds, and likely can only handle one USB-C port. Yep, sounds awfully familiar to the 12-inch MacBook, doesn't it? Now, the machine will likely still feature MagSafe and a headphone jack, so you can still charge and use headphones while leaving that USB-C port free, but it's still a very notable compromise. Now, a great app to use with this new MacBook will be Timing, today's sponsor. Timing is an app that automatically tracks which apps, documents, and websites you spend time on. It groups activities, shows patterns, and even gives instant summaries so you understand where your time really goes. It automatically times how long you spend on which app and what you were doing on that app. You also get AI summaries, which can give you a quick insight on what you were doing on that app. And it can even integrate with screen time on your iPhone and iPad, which makes this app integrate very well into the Apple ecosystem. Timing even integrates with your calendar app, so you won't forget your most important tasks that you need to do. It even comes with a web app, allowing you to start or stop your timers on the go, even on your iPhone. And timing works on many of the most popular Mac browser apps like Safari, Firefox, and Chrome, along with chat apps like Messages, Slack, WhatsApp, and more. Timing also has a few additional features, like a productivity score, which can calculate how productive you were and give a rating accordingly for each project, along with a stats screen to quickly give you an overview on key details, along with the ability to generate a full report and so much more. You can purchase Timing starting at $11 a month or $108 a year, and using the first link in the description, you can get 20% off. Seriously, Timing is such a great way to keep track of your work and to see how long you've spent working. I know I spend a ton of time working on these videos and hobby projects, and Timing is a perfect way to keep track of that. Click the first link below to try Timing today. Thanks to Timing for sponsoring today's video. Another compromise is the display, where Apple is doing something they haven't done in over 20 years. The display used in this MacBook will actually be recycled from an existing Apple product, the 13-inch iPad Air. Despite the name, the 13-inch iPad Air actually uses a 12.9-inch display, which is the exact display size rumored for this MacBook. It's the smallest display size on a MacBook since the 12-inch MacBook. But since this is an iPad display, that means it'll use a 4:3 aspect ratio. That's an aspect ratio that hasn't been used on a Mac notebook since the iBook and a 12-inch PowerBook from 2005. 4:3 is a good aspect ratio for text content, but it's not very ideal for video content, as since most content is 16:9 or even wider, you'll see big black bars on the top and bottom of your screen. Now, it's not entirely clear if this is the exact display that Apple will be using, but if they're already trying to save on costs, then using a panel that's already in production seems like a good way to do so. There's also a chance that this device will feature the same bezel size as that 13-inch iPad Air, which is noticeably thicker than the current MacBook Air bezels, but it's still better than the old M1 MacBook Air bezels. And as a side bonus for those who care, this eliminates the notch. But in all seriousness, I think this display will work well in this machine when paired together with liquid glass in macOS Tahoe. Since the iPad Air uses that same design language with iPadOS 26, using that iPad Air display on a MacBook wouldn't be that bizarre. Probably the most exciting thing about this MacBook, aside from the price, is the color selection. This new MacBook will use the same color palette as the base model iPad, meaning it'll come in silver, blue, pink, and yellow. This would be the first time we actually see vibrant colors on a Mac notebook since the iBook G3 clamshell from 1999. We've either seen very subtle or neutral colors since then, while the fun colors have been saved for the iMac. Plus, this goes in line with the strategy Apple does with the iPad. The base model iPad gets the fun colors, the iPad Air gets more subtle and, well, airier colors, and the iPad Pro gets two neutral colors. And overall, this device fits in incredibly well with Apple's current iPhone and full-size iPad product strategy. We have the iPad, iPad Air, and iPad Pro, along with the iPhone 17, iPhone Air, and iPhone 17 Pro. Now we'll have a MacBook, MacBook Air, and MacBook Pro. Three separate product lines for three separate groups of users. Given the compromises with this new MacBook, this will still give the MacBook Air a great market position, as it'll still have a better display, much better chip, and better I/O. But for those who just want a new MacBook for as affordably as possible, they have that option now. And especially when this thing goes on sale or bought with an education discount or arrives unrefurbished, it'll become an even more killer deal. In addition, this could be the perfect machine for Intel Mac users to upgrade to. Apple has confirmed that Intel Macs will be dropped with macOS 27, leaving very limited time for Intel Mac users to upgrade. But with this new machine releasing months ahead of macOS 27's announcement, it'll be the perfect machine for Intel users to upgrade to. Or if you already have a great desktop Mac, this could be a great portable machine to use alongside that. Whatever it is that you need a new MacBook for, this will be the default recommendation for most people. This device is expected to be released in the first half of 2026. Personally, I believe that it'll be announced in March alongside the M5 MacBook Air, combined with the M5 Pro and M5 Max MacBook Pros released earlier in 2026, the M5 Mac Mini, M5 Mac Studio, M5 iMac, and the redesigned M6 MacBook Pro later in 2026. It's set to be a very huge year for the Mac. So, that's what to expect from Apple's new $600 MacBook. What do you think about this new machine? Will you be picking one up? And if so, are you switching from Windows to do so? Let me know in the comments.